As many of you who have been paying attention have noticed, my channel's been going through more branding than a steer in Texas. And speaking of big changes, what happened on Friday? Time for me to talk about it. I talked about it in a live stream, the audio of which is going to be dropping again on my channel. For those of you who don't know, I stream, then I re-release it over on Spotify, Amazon Music, and Audible and Substack. So make sure you pay attention because I talk about this at length there. But to quickly summarize, what happened really, what I believe that we saw was Zelensky showed up to the Trump White House expecting Trump to act like Biden. And why? I really do believe that a lot of it has to do with the fact that Trump was way more reconciliatory to Zelensky in his first term. And we see that because of the fact that Trump sent Javelin missiles to the Ukrainians and then took the praise for it whenever they were using them against the Russian invasion in 2022. I'm old enough to remember seeing Trump go on Fox News and talk to Sean Hannity about it and talk about, I'm the one who sent them those missiles that they're using right now. So much for Russia, Russia, Russia. So to go on, what else did we see? Well, Trump has had a change of heart and a change of mind. And why? Well, there was this little tiny thing called, oh, I don't know, getting impeached because of something that happened with Ukraine. For those of you with a memory like Joe Biden, try to remember what happened in January of 2020. He got impeached, didn't he? Now, he got acquitted. Yes, admittedly, he got acquitted not long after. And then he got impeached and acquitted regarding January 6th. But Donald Trump, though he was impeached and walked away from it scot-free because he didn't do anything wrong, does not forget when people are disloyal to him. And here's the thing. Post-2020, once Joe Biden took office, Zelensky has cozied right up to the Biden administration, an administration that Donald Trump, the man, cannot stand, and for good reason. It was one of the most corrupt administrations in the history of our nation. Trump constantly on the campaign trail thought he was going to be going up against good old Joe from Scranton. Turns out that no, the guy that us on the right had been saying had dementia. And so he was shoved aside, and then they threw Kamala Harris in there instead. So, regarding all of this, Zelensky walked into that meeting expecting Donald Trump to act like he had acted from 2017 to early part of 2021. Obviously, he left in January of 21. And it was very different. Part of this cannot be understated, or this cannot go understated, is the fact that the other person in the Oval Office is not named Mike Pence. His name is J.D. Vance. And Mike Pence, is very clear from watching that campaign, wanted to continue to give aid to Ukraine. J.D. Vance is not like that. J.D. Vance is not perfect, but he's more of an America firster. And that became very clear in this meeting as well. J.D. Vance really took Zelensky to task. Now, another thing that I wanted to read to you and talk to you guys about, there's an article, and I'm reading this by, I think her name's Katerina Sorohina, written on RBC Ukraine, but MSN is reposting it. Having to do with a meeting that NATO had over in London. After a heated dispute between the presidents of Ukraine and the US, Ukraine's European allies are working to develop a unified policy to defuse the diplomatic crisis. Specifically, Europe's next strategy was discussed at an informal summit in London on March the 2nd, so that was Sunday. RBC Ukraine outlines the key statements from European leaders on renewing contacts with the US, supporting Ukraine, and Europe's overall strategy for ending the war. The summit in London had been announced before the Ukrainian president visited Washington, signaling Europe's strategic preparation for potential shifts in US policy. However, following the controversy between Zelensky and Trump, the summit took on even greater significance. The meeting was attended by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, as well as the leaders of France, Germany, Denmark, the Netherlands, Norway, Poland, Spain, Canada, Finland, Sweden, Czechia, and Romania. Additionally, the negotiations included Turkey's Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan, NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, European Commissioner President Ursula von der Leyen, and European Council President Antonio Costa. Point being, guys, to get back into it. What are we seeing here? What's NATO doing? What are they trying to achieve? They're trying to develop a more Eurocentric center of power. The United States correctly is saying, guys, that's your affair. Europe can handle this. And what's Europe doing? Trying to step up to the plate because, frankly, they have to. For example, if Donald Trump had just said, all right, here you go, billions of dollars, would this meeting of NATO have happened? Sure. But as this article goes on, written by Ukrainian people, there's way more significance here. Why? Because it's a very different conversation. Rather than a conversation about, okay, well, we got $48 billion and how are we going to spend it? It becomes, shoot, we didn't get these billions of dollars. What do we do now? It's a different kind of conversation. And I'm proud of POTUS. I'm proud of Donald Trump for standing up. I really hope he does not fold. The time of testing will come when the House and Senate, led by John Thune, the Caligula of our time, politically speaking, I would frankly take one of Caligula's horses before I take John Thune leading the House or Senate, regardless of the political house that he's in. I mean, the guy has a political future, he thinks, but I really don't want him in anything except a pair of handcuffs. Why? He's a warmongering hawk scumbag. And for Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, my state, see above, the exact same problem. And guess what? Graham in the Senate is trying to formulate this $48 billion spending package to Ukraine as well. What's going to happen is this is eventually going to get on Trump's desk, and then that's when the moment of truth will be there. Will Donald Trump pick up his pen and sign it into law, or will he veto it? That's the important question. And it's important to ask this because we need to have this in our sights. We can't have this happen and be like, oh, what a surprise. We have to be able to see it coming. So hopefully Trump has the intestinal fortitude and the anatomical attributes to say, nope, I will veto it. This will then force the Republican House and Senate to supersede his veto, to overturn it, to have enough of a majority to push it on through. And that will be hard because there's a lot of Republicans that are finally waking up to this. And a number of Republicans as well are going to do what Donald Trump says, not what Thune and Lindsey Graham say. Thank goodness. You'd be better off taking orders from, I don't know, Maxine Waters on peaceful protests than you would on Lindsey Graham or John Thune on political expediency or what's best for the American people. So the point being, this is what's going on in NATO. I really think that it's helpful for me to give you my thoughts on NATO. I think it should have been dissolved post-1991. The Soviet Union fell. What does it exist for anymore? What does it do except take our money? That's one thing that Trump tried to do whenever he got in the first time, was make everyone pay their fair share. Okay, I prefer that certainly to us just being everyone else's piggy bank. But this is a big warmongering globalist organization. There's people out there who don't understand. They're probably 55 and older who are like, well, NATO is who fights against terrorism. And I'm not going to even try to appeal to you because it's a matter of living on different planets. There's the BoomerCon establishment that thinks that they hate us because we're free over in other countries. Then there's those of us who live in reality. Those of us who say we are not any safer for going to a war, starting another war, and NATO only pulls us into war and expects us to be the strongman, the policeman of the world. Getting out of NATO is imperative. Now, Congress has passed an act, I've talked about this at length, making it much more difficult to do so. It's unfortunate, but nothing is impossible. We have got to try somehow to get out of that organization, that corrupt Cold War organization. And it's basically run by the German state at this point. The German state that is responsible for bringing in millions of Muslims into their country, to the point that now a populist right party called Alternative for Deutschland, or I'm sure I'm not pronouncing alternative right, that's actually would be in German, but basically translates to Alternative for Germany, is finally starting to gain traction in a country where they have been indoctrinated against the far right, the so-called far right, which is really the real right. In a country that's been indoctrinated to that point, now finally a right-wing party is starting to gain some traction. It's not where it needs to be. There's a lot of seats they do not hold yet. They don't have a lot of power yet, but they're building. And why? It's because people are freaking tired of hearing Turkish and Arabic in their streets. They want to hear German. They want to stop seeing people walk around there in their cultural dress of their Muslim countries. They want people to walk around and talk and act like Germans, frankly. And that's an important thing. So when it comes to NATO, they should have been disbanded. But for the moment, we're stuck in it. So what needs to be done is what Trump is doing. Hey, guys, if you guys want to handle this, okay, but I don't want any part of this war. That's on the one hand. That's just half of it, where he says we don't want a part of this war. The other half is, okay, well, this war is going on. What can we do to have peace? And then whenever the president of Ukraine, Zelensky, is disrespectful, tell him to get the heck out of there, which is what Trump and Vance did. They held his feet to the fire. He didn't like it. He started calling them names and refusing to show any kind of gratitude. So he got kicked out of the White House. And I'm sure there's a ton of rhinos and centrists out there who are so triggered by what Donald Trump and J.D. Vance did. But dadgummit, after 4 years of having Joe Biden in there, it's really good seeing a president stand up for America. Now, another thing that I think is important to look at with NATO is, of these countries, are there any in there that actually care about America and our interests? The answer is, okay, there's probably individuals within those countries who do care about America and our interests, but they don't hold any real power. The people in charge of NATO, the people in charge of these foreign countries, including Great Britain, only care about money and wealth and how they can get the United States dollars into their country and or weapons into their country, and or how can they get our military to protect them? How can they leech off of us? That's what they want. There's unfortunately not really any real allies of America right now, and it's completely understandable. Our foreign policy, our diplomacy has been a disaster. So it's really hard to say. I mean, I think that in some ways these countries have affection for America, the country, but they don't give a crap about the fact that we're being replaced from these third world countries because they're doing it themselves. The people in power are doing it themselves. Now, does Nigel Farage care about America, and does he hold some kind of political power? Yeah, I think that he probably is way better than most. So there's him, and I like him. Geert Wilders in the Netherlands. Yeah, I like him a lot better too. I think there are certain people that have power, but it's such a small amount of power. They need to really be in a position to actually make decisions in their countries, and they don't. And it's not going to happen for a while. It's going to take a multifaceted, long game plan of elite theory for us to actually take over these countries and to turn back from the cliff that we're rushing towards. Remember, guys, always remember, conservatism is just progressivism driving the speed limit. Reactionaryism is not just putting on the brakes, but starting to drive the other direction. This is Gelos Aristarchos. Make sure you're following my blog and subscribing to my YouTube channel. Everybody have a great evening. Take care. Looking forward to having you guys listen to my review of The Reactionary Mind by Michael Warren Davis. You guys are going to love it.